everybody. I'd like to call to order a regular meeting of the Board of Education being held in the District Administration Building. 6:50. We're just a few minutes late. Thank you for bearing with us. On Monday, March 18th. After the Pledge of Allegiance, please take a moment of silence to remember Laura Vaughn, mother of Kelly Vaughn, and Dan Kidhart, husband of Jean Kidhart.
United States of America. One nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice.
Thank you. Moving on, I don't believe we have any to the floor at the moment. Thank you. And next item on the list, President's report. Just a very short report for me. I just want to offer a big congratulations to our theater program and our theater departments over at CJ and the high school the past 2 weekends. If you got out to see these students perform, they just absolutely brought the stage to life. It was a big moment at CJ. There were some big milestones. It was their 10th production. It was Annie Jr., which was the show that was shut down during COVID. And they brought a lot of high school students out to take a bow that they missed out on. The show shut down a few days before COVID. So it was really a nice, spectacular moment. We saw SpongeBob at the high school. I mean, it was nothing short of a Broadway musical with everything from costumes to lights to projections and tech, and sound effects, and just brilliant performances. So again, congratulations to everyone in our theater program there, our directors, costume, makeup, especially the students. You all did a fantastic job. I think our student representative is probably still sleeping. She did SpongeBob as well. So big congratulations to everybody. Really phenomenal job. And that's all I have on my report for this evening. Down the list here. Do we have an update this evening, Mr. Sullivan?
We did have a meeting. We had a presentation from several people from various county mental health offices, as well as OPWDD. I had requested the materials that they gave us to be sent digitally. Unfortunately, I didn't get it until about 5 o'clock today, so I plan to have a more formal presentation of what we went over for next meeting and have those documents all attached to board docs too, so they'll be available for the community. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any additional board member committee reports to share? All right, policy committee is busy as usual. Does anybody need a few minutes to read through some of the policies that were issued, or did everyone have a moment? Good. All right, some of those policies that were issued for first reading were recruiting and hiring policy number 9240, and conditional appointment and emergency conditional appointment, student safety policy number 9260. And moving on, we'll go right into our superintendent's report. Dr. Curtis Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. Loftus. I'd first like to invite up Mrs. Martha Bogart from the Orange Ulster BOCES Board. It's that time of the year where BOCES is putting together its annual budget, and she is here to share information that has to do with the BOCES Board. Ms. Bogart.
Thank you.
Got it.
Goshen already has a really great partnership with OU BOCES, of course, and our students are up on the 2nd and 3rd floor each day learning. And I would like to thank Curtis for continuing a close partnership with our superintendent. And it really is nice to know that we're all a team. This year we did something very different. We had individualized, and you can see your logo there, all the data for each school district. And then I, as a liaison, and the other liaisons are all going to their school districts to, just say a few words about this new initiative. On the first page, Orange Ulster BOCES CTEC programs. And from 2018 to 23, we listed all the programs and your participation. The next page dealt with the special ed program, and we did the same thing. We listed your individual data, and we found this was very helpful to us, and hopefully it'll be interesting and helpful to you. On the back page, we have some additional COSER offerings available to school districts. The management services, for example, the shared lunch manager, you know that you have your lunch manager through BOCES. Communication services, printing, public relations, and we have a grant writer too. The printing, I have had an opportunity, being a Goshen grandma, to have seen some of the posters that were printed over at the Arden Hill campus, and they look very nice. We're very proud of that service. Technical services, we have instructional technology services, facilities management, internet filtering, disaster recovery. And then we also have shared technicians and specialists, which has been very helpful to districts who run into tech problems. At the bottom of the last page, you have your instructional support services. And included in that would be, say, the professional learning workshops, the engineering and STEM program. We have the mock trial in youth and government, which I know is something that Goshen always participated in. And under instructional services, we also on staff development days sometimes provide speakers, and then some of your teachers may go over to the BOCES campus, and other of our people will go to other schools. So it makes it more interesting, I would say, in staff development day. Now, on another note, every month, pretty much, we have something that we call our getting to know us. And what we do, we invite board members to come for a tour of BOCES. And the next getting to know us will be Wednesday, April 10th, from 9 to 11 at the Gibson Road site. Now, this is where the STEM program is housed, and also the aviation. So if you come on the tour, you will actually get to sit in front of a simulator and fly an airplane. And I couldn't imagine, how excited some of the board members were who came to the last workshop and did that. So again, I want to thank you for your support of BOCES and our programs. Now, if any of you have any questions about anything in this, please call them Deborah McBride Heppes's office. She's our superintendent and actually our chief operating officer. And she can direct you to the correct answer. So thank you very much, and that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Boger. So keeping going on my agenda, we had previously spoken about delays through the state education department with the GIS roofing project. Pleased to report that we have been issued our building permit, and we have issued a purchase order through the Omnia bid process. They are actually going to begin weather dependent working on the GIS roofing project over spring recess. We're quickly trying to put together a leadership team meeting with GIS, but because it's primarily a roofing project, there should be little to no impact on the occupants of the building, and most of the work hopefully will be done without distraction to the school inside. I'm going to keep going down and just give a brief update on the budget, because Ms. Lambrand and Mr. Carter and myself will be giving a more extensive update. So as of today, we saw that the New York State Legislature released its one House budget proposal to respond to the governor's budget proposal that came out in January. Some of the highlights of that included that because the governor had proposed some significant reductions for some districts, including Goshen and Foundation Aid, the legislature had come out with a proposal of 3% minimum increase to Foundation Aid for all districts. Obviously, they're going to have to reconcile that. It'll be some time before that happens, but we're watching very closely to see what transpires. There were some changes to allocations for universal pre-K. There was some legislative changes, commissioning of an agency to do a Foundation Aid survey, looking at the electric bus mandate. There's a whole list of responses in the legislative budget proposal that we're watching very closely. We're hopeful that a budget will come shortly after the 1st of May. In last conversation with Senator Skoufis, he was very negative, if you will, about thinking that the budget would be done before the end of this month. But we are watching closely to see when that's issued, hopefully before our board has to adopt the budget to present to the public. Mr. Johnson, if you don't mind coming forward. So I'm going to ask Mr. Carter and Mr. Pantaleone if you don't mind coming up as well.
Hey, Mr. Johnson.
Right up to you. So peer recognition is probably one of the best accolades that a professional can receive, and it is not through any accidental issue that you are here with us tonight, Mr. Johnson. We've had you come and celebrate with the board the work that you and Mr. Fedor do on behalf of the students in the high school and on behalf of the whole district. Mr. Johnson was nominated before the New York State Technology and Engineering Educators Association, and we were notified just about 2 weeks ago that he was selected as the agency's Teacher of the Year. This past week, we were invited up to the dinner in Troy, I believe. We did not want to let the moment go without bringing you here to celebrate the hard work that you do and acknowledge it. So congratulations on your award. Well done.
And he coaches unified basketball. Yay.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Last but not least, if I could just make one introduction. We have gone through an extensive search process for our new 10-month assistant principal. And our the candidate is here this evening, Ms. Janelle Hindell, with her family. So I'm going to ask her at this time to stand, introduce your family, and introduce yourself to the Board of Education.
Thank you. Do you want to go to the mic?
Please.
Okay. I still have my teacher voice. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm Janelle Hindell. I'm here with my husband, Dr. Benjamin Hindell, my oldest son, Oliver Hindell, and my youngest son, Liam Hindell. We are honored to be here. We are so grateful for the opportunity that you have granted us for me to join our wonderful Goshen administration team. I'm so excited to get started. Currently, this is my 21st year in education overall, ranging from college all the way to elementary. So I've seen it all, experienced a lot. I'm so excited to bring my experiences here to Goshen. I'm a Hudson Valley native, grew up in Cornwall. So I'm excited to come back home and really serve our community. I'm really excited for the opportunities. Thank you so much. And thank you to the community and to the board and to our superintendents. And thank you so much. I'm really excited.
Dr. Coates, moving on to our Assistant Superintendent for Business Report, Ms. Lorraine Lammers.
Thank you and good evening. We'll read my report about the budget. I do have the financial reports in your packets or in board docs. For tonight, they are for the month of February. Noteworthy, the expenses in the general fund were $4.5 million for the month. We did receive some revenue. Typically, January and February are light in revenue and start getting more aid again in March. So I have larger numbers for you this month. But we did get our lottery aid, $144,000. We received OC's aid of $473,000. We did receive some tuition payments for students that are in our districts such as foster students, so the home district has to pay for their education. That was $46,000, and our interest earnings were $158,000. Our budget status through the end of February, the total expenses for the year were $45.6 million, 1% of the budget. And our revenue status is $69.7 million or 79% of our budget. And these numbers are in line with what we've been history, historical documents. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna hop around a little bit here this evening before we dive into the budget presentation. Now that we've had an introduction of our forthcoming assistant principal, we are going to move over to resolution item number 13.2 on the new business. Make the appointment official, and then we'll dive back into the budgetary presentation. That way you and the youngsters can head out, unless you'd like to sit and listen to the budget presentation.
But I don't think we are.
So, good recommendation, thank you. All right, I need a motion for the appointment of Goshen High School Assistant Principal. All right, John Ashley. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education appoints Janelle Hindell, 10-month Assistant Principal of Goshen High School, at gross salary of $132,500, prorated, effective April 22nd, 2024. The tenure date of April 22nd, 2028, in the tenure area of 10-month Assistant Principal. Ms. Hindell has professional social studies 7 through 12 and initial school building leadership certificates. Ms. Hindell is replacing Denise Suganhouse. All those in favor? Opposed? Official congratulations. Thank you. And now turning it back over to you, Ms. Lyman.
Evening. Tonight I'll be reviewing with Dr. Coates and Mr. Carter, the instructional side of the budget. I reviewed the non-instructional section of the budget last board meeting. Now this is the second half of the budget and it's the instructional section. Hopefully we will have a state budget by April 1st and we can present the final revenue status to you on April 8th. If not, we do have April 22nd, when the board would have to adopt the budget, but we could do a final presentation of the revenue. And we also need the approval of the property tax report card at that time. The public hearing is on May 7th, and the annual budget vote this year is on Tuesday, May 21st. Our budget development goals are in line with the board goals. The board goals this year, the creation of a district facilities plan, the creation of an action plan for the electrification of the bus fleet, and the adoption of our policy manual. We also align with our strategic plan, which includes continuing to facilitate a safe, respectful, and engaging school community, and to design and continue to implement a comprehensive and aligned program. Additional budget goals include ensuring the highest quality teaching for our students. We also continue to provide a safe, supportive learning environment and maintain adequate staffing to meet program needs. Capital project planning, facility maintenance and upgrades, we do have these included in the budget. And we also want to maintain financial stability. We want to rely less on fund balance if possible and to keep our tax levy within the levy cap. This year, our levy cap is a calculation of 5.49%, and that calculation changes each year. I think I've spoken about this before. It's based on a number of factors. You have exclusions included in the calculation, so each year is different. You could have a year such as this year at 5.49%. Next year, it could be 1%, or sometimes I've seen it go negative in some districts. It's all dependent on the economy and different factors included in that calculation. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I've also continued to adjust budget lines to accurately reflect expenditures, and we have transparency in the budget development. So what are our considerations and challenges that we face? This year, there's a decline in state aid. We have received an increase in state aid over the last 3 years in which foundation aid was fully funded. But now that that has occurred, we actually are seeing a decline of $372,000. We're hoping that we will see hold harmless, which is what the governor wants to change, but the White House is contradicting that, so hopefully we will see that come through. The tax levy cap, again, we want to stay within this number, and we're dealing with rising CPI again. CPI right now is 4.1%, actually last month. Our enrollment, this year our enrollment is growing in the special education section. We have a number of kindergartners coming into the district. Usually we have 5 with needs. This year they're 12, so we have to address this in the budget. Staffing and benefits and BOCES costs are typical, they increase every year based on contractual obligations. And I think I've mentioned before that BOCES has to pass their increased costs on to us because they cannot have fund balance. So they have to pass it on to all the school districts that participate in their services. Curriculum and programs, we have the science of reading and new standards coming down for new science standards. Special education, again, we have increased costs with the students coming in. Facilities, upkeep and improvements and safety issues we try to address first, but we also have other issues that keep popping up, just like at home. Technology, this is always changing and it's hard to stay ahead with cybersecurity in particular, but we do try to do so. And also we have our replacement plan for Chromebooks and other equipment that we follow. Debt service, we have to be cognizant of this. Typically want it to stay flat so that you don't have any spikes or dips in your budget, and also your tax levy, because that also has an impact on your levy cap calculation. And then our favorite is the unfunded mandates that we just don't know what's coming about. So the instructional section of the budget is that section that directly impacts students. Last time you heard about the side behind the scenes, the buildings and grounds and the business office, the central office, Board of Education costs. This side is purely instructional and impacts student instruction. There's 5 sections listed up above. Curriculum development and supervision is where you'll find all the costs for assistant superintendent for curriculum, the principals, assistant principals and directors, such as our athletic director and our special education director, all the clerical help, all their supplies. Curriculum work during the summer as well as during the school year is funded through this section of the budget. Next, we have teaching. This is the biggest part of the instructional budget. This is your regular teacher salaries, teacher assistants and aides. All their supplies, student supplies, textbooks, tutoring costs, tuition. We do pay tuition for, if we have any students that are in the foster system in another district, we would have to pay tuition for those students. We also have all our BOCES services. One of the handout that we saw earlier is very helpful. You can look through there and see all the BOCES services. We do subscribe to a majority of those on that list, and those are found throughout this section of the budget. So for example, Odyssey of the Mind, New Beginnings, Spark, and IDT are all in this section of the budget. Next, we have special apportionment. This is where you'll find the special education services, English language learners, occupational education. Occupational education is where we have the CTEC costs for BOCES, and we have our in-house programs for business, career, and home and careers. Not sure, what is it called now? Family consumer science. I'm dating myself. And also technology. That's where you'll find these costs for the teachers and all their supplies and equipment, etc. And we also have our evening high school here in this section. Instructional media is where you'll find technology. This includes all of the equipment and software found throughout the district. We also have library costs as well. It's the librarian salaries and assistants and books and supplies. And last but not least is pupil personnel services. This is all the services we provide to students. So you have your nursing services, psychologists, social workers. We also have sports. We have the athletics section of the budget in this area, as well as extracurricular. So any of the clubs and the class advisors and whatnot, you'll find their salaries in here. All equipment and supplies also through here, and BOCES services as well. So these 5 sections, I've taken each of the 5 sections and compared them with the current budget for this year, 23-24. And I have a dollar change and a percentage change. And I'll just walk you through these changes. So the first one is partly the increase here is salary codes, but it's also right sizing the budget. I had to move some sections of the budget, and you'll see in the budget transfers throughout the year that I will do this. I'll move things, and I'm still tweaking the budget from last year as well and making sure things are coded properly. And that is mainly the driver in this section. We do have a small increase in teaching regular schools, and a large part of the reason for this is there is salary breakage. I think you might have heard that talked about at the open forum. But although we do have a salary breakage, I also want to remind you that when I presented the non-instructional section of the budget, the benefits section did increase because we do have retirement payments to make for people when they retire. So we do have to budget for that. So we really don't recognize that breakage the first year when people retire. Special apportionment, the driver in this section of the budget, it's $2.3 million increase or 15%. We are adding staff because of the incoming students for special education. We have 1 full-time teacher budgeted here for Scotchtown Elementary for kindergarten, and also 1 full-time person budgeted for the life skills class at CJ Hooker. We also have incoming students that will be going to BOCES, so I've had to increase our BOCES tuition as well as our private tuition for residential placements or day placements. We also have in this section budgeted for a behaviorist who was funded through the grants previously. So that is another driver in this section of the budget. Our instructional media section, we do see a decline, or projected a decline here, and that's because of our E-rate project. That was a one-shot deal where we had a project for a technology department to do, and that was for this year only, so I can reduce that expense for next year. And pupil personnel services, 3.9% increases, basically driven by contractual obligations, salaries, and BOCES costs. So our total increase in the instructional section comes to $2.4 million or 5%. Now I've taken these 5 sections and put them into a pie chart for a visual. And you can see that teaching makes up the biggest part of the pie, and our special appropriation or apportionment, section takes up the next largest section of this budget, and that is typical. You will see that in most districts. And then the other 3 remaining make up small parts of this section of the budget. And these are the specific codes you saw also in the non-instructional side, but there are a few different ones. They're all remaining the same or similar, except for the last 3, second to last 3, software, tuition, and textbooks. You'll find these in the instructional side of the budget, not on the non-instructional side. And here's a breakdown of those expenditures, classifications, and salaries increase is 2.1% or $764,100. Equipment, we're keeping flat for next year. Contract services, I talked about the behaviors. This is where you'll find the behaviors coded in a 0.4, and that is the driver here in this increase of 11.1%. Supplies, we were able to decrease a small amount, $2,700, less than 1%. BOCES services, the driver here is our special education placements, but again, all of BOCES services increase, just like our costs increase, their costs increase, so it's the sum total of all. And then under other software, tuition and textbooks, the driver here is also our placements, rather than our software and our textbooks. We do budget for the same amount as this year. And those are aided items, software and textbooks and library materials. I don't know if I talked about that. I'll probably talk about that more in the revenue side of the budget. Those are aided items. Pie chart of each of the expenditures, and you can see salaries makes up the biggest part of this section of the budget. And that's typical, again, in the non-instructional side, benefits made up the largest section there, so you can see salaries and benefits together make up about 70% of the total budget. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Carter.
So I'll do a quick introduction. So before we get into some of the specifics of what is funded in this budget proposal, the concept of what we look at is really focused this year on sustainability. We introduced a new literacy program, a new math program, some great dual enrollment and college expansion programs at the high school. The foundation for what we're trying to accomplish this year is really in the realm of sustainability. It doesn't mean that we're not always looking to improve, doesn't mean that we're not looking for programs. But the core concept that we're going to hear us speak about tonight is that well-rounded sustainability of our program so that we can continue to push forward and take what we're doing well and make it even better. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Carter to explain what's included in this year's proposal.
Thank you, Dr. Coates. So if we begin at Goshen High School, the first item that you see is sustainability of graduation pathways. So if you think about most recently, the addition of the Seal of Biliteracy, the Seal of Civic Readiness, in addition to computer science pathway, 4+1 there, computer science, we will need continued ongoing professional development there. And there's also costs associated with having our there's costs associated with having our teachers remain on schedule of professional development and maintain accreditation, as there's also the same with the sustainability of dual enrollment college course opportunities in the high school. At the high school level, we have a very robust college course offering, dual enrollment offering, working with Mount St. Mary, working with Syracuse University for student courses, Siena, OC. So again, for our teachers to maintain their adjunct status, we also have to focus there on professional development. As you move into New York State Science Standards P12, moving into the third phase of the science standards and implementation, we're very well aware that when it comes to the standards and specifically Regents, the first administration of Regents will be June 25 with Earth Science and Bio, and then also our Chem and Physics will be in June of 26. And there is the crossover where students will be able to take the test that's best associated with the instruction that they're receiving. So therefore, we put together a rather handsome sum of money to ensure that we have enough professional development and also supplies so that our students are well prepared for those. Sustainability of internship program. This is something that we've worked on at the high school. If you recall, we've added to our vocational internship program. So we have students now with the opportunity to go through and work with electricians, maybe welding, HVAC, and so on. So this will allow for us to sustain that program and give our teachers at the high school the monies that are necessary to continue to have the outreach necessary to set up the internships, to monitor the internships, and to provide the students with what they need. Creation of opportunities for intramural sporting activities. Our goal here with intramural opportunities for the students is to provide a chance for students to participate in athletic events, if you will, among others, when not participating in interscholastic athletics. So we wanted to be able to provide those opportunities year-round, seasonally, of course. Love to get outside as much as possible as well. And we developed this opportunity here for intramurals. As we move into CJ Hooker, what you'll start to see now is some overlap between CJ Hooker and high school, and then also CJ Hooker with GIS and so on. So once again, we talk about the implementation of the science standards and the need for professional development. And also as you move into the 8th grade level, we have our teachers also responsible for regions, so they're in need of the same professional development and awareness in preparation for that. Math and focus and scholastic literacy as the core instructional programs, we want to continue to provide as much professional development as we can. We'd like to continue to work with Scholastic and their team, and we'd like to continue to bring in not just from Newton Mifflin, but also any outside vendor that we can to help us with implementation and growth in math and focus. So that is on our list. Support for science investigations. So again, you'll see some crossover here between both GIS and CJ Hooker. Again, in line with what's required by the learning standards, the science learning standards. We now have our hands-on science investigations, and there are 4 that are required prior to taking the exam in grade 5 and in grade 8. So there's a great need for supply monies to start with the science investigations. I don't have purchase orders in front of me, but what I can tell you is that kits for science investigations, they can range upward to $300 per kit. And of course, you only get a few students on kit. So if you have to go through a class of anywhere from 20 to 25, 28, you need multiple kits in the classroom, and this would be year after year. They can be purchased through outside vendors such as Wards. You can purchase through BOCES. You can also do your best to purchase supplies from Staples or maybe Dollar Store. So we'll do whatever we have to do to get those supplies, but there is a need for the monies for that. And sustainability for Project Lead the Way. What we do here is not only put monies aside to assist the buildings with the purchase of the equipment and materials that are needed, but if we want to add a module, you have to be specifically trained in that module by Project Lead the Way, and that training can range anywhere from, on a safe side, let's say 2,000 to 3,000, plus any associated travel to acquire that training. So we do have monies aside if we choose to expand modules. Goshen Intermediate School in Scotchtown, again, you see sustainability for math and focus and scholastic, which is very key. We continue to meet with both, which you'll hear in my report this evening, but every time now out of contract that we meet with Scholastic or math and focus reps or model schools, for instance, that is an additional cost. So we have money set aside for those costs. And then sustainability for Choose Love, again, any material costs, any program costs, any assembly costs, if desired, we did put money aside to support Choose Love as well. Then you move into what you see as district-wide initiatives. So the first one is our summer curriculum work and ongoing professional development. And traditionally, what we do here with summer curriculum work is to come up with goals as an administrative team. And we put together a sum of money that will allow teachers and teams of teachers to put in proposals based on the goals that are established. Then they get approved at the building level and the district level, and we receive then finished products throughout the summer months. And also throughout the school year, we put together a professional development budget that will allow our teachers to go out to requested and chosen professional development opportunities, both at the building level on behalf of the district. Next, you see the one-to-one Chromebook initiative. So this is a plan that we put together that helps us to manage those devices that start to reach that 5 and 6 year unable to be updated realm. Most recently, we purchased 250 Chromebooks, and we're also purchasing Chromebooks or laptops for some of our teachers that travel between buildings, between departments and so on within a building. So we do have that initiative in place, and we continue with that to keep all of our inventory current and able to be updated, running the most current and secure software and also hardware programs. Next, you have opportunities for professional development and multisensory reading for special education teachers. So this is something that's actually in the budget so that if we have teachers who are interested in securing the fundamental trainings of maybe Orton or Wilson, we want our teachers to take advantage of that opportunity, but also if there are teachers who have maybe secured a level 1 training and wish to go into a more advanced training, we have money set aside in the budget to allow for that as well. So hopefully we'll have individuals taking advantage of that. District-wide grants, back to.
Yeah. So, as we know, 3 years ago, we began accessing universal pre-K monies that were available to the school district. Next year, our allocation is well over what we will be able to spend. The state has benchmarked $920,362 for universal pre-K in the district. We can at this time only accommodate up to 54 seats in Scottsdale Avenue. The state's per pupil allocation is only $5,400 per student right now. The legislature has proposed looking to raise that amount up to $6,700. That will still have to be reconciled, but we just simply don't have the space to accommodate to be able to use all of the funding that's available to us. We continue to explore ways to do that, but we are pleased that we can even get up to the 54 seats that we have available to the community right now. This will also be the last year of some of the COVID funding that will come to a close in terms of what we've used to grant fund the AAS teachers that we have hired in each building. So we've been able to hire a math and literacy AAS teacher in each of the 4 buildings. Those monies will sunset, and I've had some good conversations with the principals about opportunities moving forward on how to continue to support program, but also the potential of looking at ways to either repurpose that staff or to help them move on to other places. As Mrs. Lamoran shared earlier, our enrollment is still somewhat static. As of February, we were up approximately 30 students, but if we look at a 10-year look back, we've not really seen more than a 5 to 7% delta in either direction, either rise or decline. So our enrollment is still somewhat steady. The summer months can be highly unpredictable. Depending on housing starts, depending on a whole variety of different elements that are unpredictable, not to be redundant, enrollment can go up, it can go down, but we have not seen the changes that many of the school districts in the area have seen in terms of 10, 15, in some cases 20% changes in enrollments in their districts. So I'll turn it back to you to finish up.
Thank you. Here's a summary of our major changes in this section of the budget. We have increased costs for salaries. That's our 2 FTEs that we will be adding, one in Scotchtown and one in CJ Hooker in the special ed department. Contractually, the behaviorist, we're increasing the budget for this position. BOCES services and tuition is increasing for next year, and tuition for our private residential placements. We also see a decrease in the salaries due to retirement. We have 10 teachers, 1 nurse, 2 assistants, 2 teacher assistants, and 1 aide that is retiring on this side of the budget. And we do see a decrease in these sections, and then a small decline in our supply orders. Our total proposed budget, I've taken the non-instructional section, the instructional section, and added them together. Our total comes to a little over $93 million, and that's an increase of $3.9 million or 4.5% overall. Last year, our increase was 6.5% in the total budget. So our proposed revenue right now with flat foundation aid, what I mean by that is I've added in that deduction that is projected right now in our aid. That was $372,237. So if we were to get hold harmless, this would be the total amount of our revenue. That's without an increase to the tax levy. Our budget projection is, again, a total of 93 million, so we're looking at a budget gap of a little over $3.5 million. So what are our options to balance the budget? We could increase revenue. That means a tax levy increase. Again, our tax levy cap is 5.49%. we can still stay under that levy cap. That is a generous levy cap calculation. And appropriate fund balance, we currently appropriate $900,000 in fund balance to balance the budget. And that's been the trend for the last, I'd say, 10 years about. There was one year we had a little more fund balance that was appropriated, but typically you've appropriated 900,000 or 984,000 for the last 10 years. Another option, we can decrease expenditures. We're looking at the capital transfer of $1.1 million that we have in the budget right now. We could decrease this. We could do a combination of increasing revenue and decreasing expenditures. And I just want to point out too, as a reminder, that when you continue to use fund balance or reserves and you have 0 to minimal tax increases, it does put a fiscal stress on the district. And we don't want to do that. We do want to stay fiscally conscious of that and be wary and just, we have to be mindful of our taxpayers, yes, but we also have to be wary of down the road where will this lead us if we continue to do those things. Wanted to have a historical slide for you showing what the tax levy has been for the last 10 years. And there has been a range of from 1.85% to 7.44%. That was the year that the debt service came into play for the project. And that is why the change was so high. That's called an exclusion. So when your net debt service, so you have your debt service and then you have your building aid, and your building aid doesn't always come right away in the first year, that is called an exclusion in your levy cap calculation. So that would be the driver in the increase there. And then the average has been, I would say 2.5% over the 10 years. Last year we had a 1%, or I'm sorry, this year we had a 1% increase, and the prior 2 years we had 0. And then giving the mission statement and questions, and if you have any now, I can address those for you.
I had a question. It was actually during Mr. Carter's part, so it's a direct question to you, but you had mentioned district-wide opportunities for professional development, multi-sensory reading for special education teachers. Obviously, we just sat through the roundtable. Definitely sounds like we have needs of that. Now, are those monies just for the process of the teacher securing the accreditation, or their salary incentives as well?
So if we pay for teachers to secure whatever it may be, it does not contribute to salary advancement. If teachers, it's just like a college course, if teachers do pay for that out of pocket, credits, for instance, teachers are able to put in free credits for salary advancement.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there additional planning, or if there are already teachers who want to take the training? Because I know that it is an intensive program. So is there thoughts and discussions taking place for other plans if teachers that we currently have don't want to take that training?
I think you bring up a very valid point. So to go through, for instance, to get to, let's say, an advanced level of Wharton or Wilson, there's a lot of work that goes into it. And the practicum, the number of hours with students that you have to work is stringent, right? So at times we do have a difficult time having teachers willing or let's say just simply volunteering to take those. But we do our best to put together opportunities and first start with presenting information. When we are trying to get more teachers interested, that's where we start at the foundational levels. So there are 20-hour courses where you may get into that let's say level 1 certificate. If we're not having any luck with having teachers voluntarily sign up for those, then we have to have discussions about bringing in others who can provide the service from outside of the district. Fortunately and unfortunately, we would prefer to have that in-house for sure.
Has there been any discussions on that same topic? If the workload is that heavy, to try to loosen the workload of that teacher so we can have in-house teachers completed without doing coursework and instruction?
So, for instance, if I'm hearing you correctly, maybe to relieve an elementary teacher for a moment in time or 30 minutes or so on, or a period at the secondary level?
Yes, so
That
they
what you're referring
they
to?
could try to
I
handle
understand.
both tasks at the same time, but we're retaining
Yeah, so
existing teacher.
we haven't solidified any plans for that. I think that we can have those discussions. One of the more difficult pieces in that is that we have to align release time with times for students that can take part in the actual practicum piece without taking away from their instructional components. And that doesn't normally work, doesn't often work during the school day. Meaning to complete a practicum during the school day, it usually happens, before or after hours. But that's certainly something that we can discuss as a team for any potential that may exist with that.
Thank you.
Sure.
So kind of going off those same lines, will those conversations be happening prior to any appointments of any replacement teachers for retirees? So this way, should the interest not be there, or should you not have, teachers that are just at this moment able to jump onto this opportunity, that you can post for someone who might have that certification in addition to an elementary or secondary cert?
From a personnel perspective, I think you raise a very valid point that any posting that goes out, of course, we would advertise for the correct certification, but also, for instance, Orton Gillingham preferred or Wilson preferred. And I do think that's something that, we can easily look into and manage without missing a beat by certification.
We have been fortunate also with some of the recent hires, for instance, the new AIS teacher that we just hired at the middle school has full certification.
I just have an additional question that doesn't have to do with multi-sensory reading. So we heard, and it was raised last board meeting, Dr. Kessling raised it during his comments. It's been raised again at the roundtable, and the consideration for funding and increased funding for the arts program. That does seem to be a concern, and we are comparing to other districts. That's something that's going to be considered again before it's not included here. So that's why I'm raising it.
So what is included in each budget, and it is in this year's budget as well, it's an opportunity for extra classes. That is included in this year's budget, so that if we wanted to increase sections in any of the disciplines, that we absolutely can. Simultaneously, what Mr. Carter has done in districts of similar size in Orange County is collecting additional information and data about number of offerings, who's teaching what, so that we can bring back to the board if we want to codify something in the budget before the budget is adopted, to have that information in hand to make it with clear data. So one of the last pieces that I just wanted to bring to the board's attention.
And you might be, I might be cutting you off, so I apologize if so. So if I'm in the audience or I'm at home and I'm watching the presentation, and I know we talked about this last time, I see the number 5.49% tax levy. Now, we know that's the cap, but we still haven't heard what the district is building the budget on. Are we building it on a 1%, or are we building it on 0%? When I hear that large number, myself as a taxpayer, that's the only number I see. And it's a little bit scary to hear that the district is only mentioning what the tax cap is and not what we are actually building our budget on.
So if I could draw your attention to the slide that reads options to balance the 24-25 budget. What we are working from right now is a proposed levy increase of 2.9%. We believe that that could potentially give us enough revenue to help balance the budget for next year. The one thing that I do want to bring to the board's attention in doing so, each year, if you proceed with a tax levy that is perpetually low, if you will, as difficult as it is to have the conversation, our only ability to raise revenue, we get it from two sources. We get it from additional state aid, or we get it from raising property taxes. The last 3 years, we've gone with 0 and 1%. When you go with a perpetually low increase to your taxes, it subsequently affects your tax cap projection for the next year. In going with 2.9, understand that it's higher than it's been the last couple of years, but even as such, if we go with 2.9 for 25-26, the maximum cap is only 1.47%. So if we go down from there, the cap is going to go even lower, and our ability to draw additional revenue in the subsequent year will be even less. It is very clear that the state is now done with fully funding the foundation aid formula, so we don't believe that we can rely on that. So our only other source of revenue to fund our costs is through property taxes. The only other option then is we have to reduce on the expense side.
So, and I'm not sure where anyone else is on this, but I think in order to prevent us coming back several times, I would like to see some different options, because I also think that 2.9% is a little high. And that's just me, again, I'm not sure where my fellow board members are, but I think that we should probably, I would like to see a couple different options as opposed to just 2.9%. I'd like to see 1%. I'd like to see maybe a couple different scenarios. I think last year, a couple of scenarios were worked out for us. Again, I not to put anyone on the spot, but if anyone.
I
I'd love to
agree,
make
I
comments.
agree with your recommendation. 2.9 might be a bit of a stretch after going 0.001. So I do think I agree with everything you said, seeing those options, and also how that might forecast out in the forthcoming years. That with a 2.9 this year, what does it allow for the following year after with the tax levy calculation? Because I thought that was informative information to see if you go too little now, how that impacts you later versus the other way around. So I definitely second that. A few options early on will be really helpful.
I agree with that also. I would also like to see, I understand they haven't given it to us yet, but just so I can see what it looks like if we do get the 3% and it is restored, just what that looks like.
I'll be the contrarian here. 2.9 is high. If we average it out over the 4 years, the fact that we had 2 years of 0, if it was 2.9, it's 3.9, it's less than 1% a year for the last 4 years. Some quick math there. But, I do think that when we're looking at these budgets, we do have to appreciate maybe the relief we felt prior years.
I agree with what everyone was saying, and I agree, I think we need different solutions, different options laid out, including if we have a smaller than 2.1%, you know, what are we looking to cut? What are the programs we're missing? You know, we heard from the roundtable about arts and other things. You know, I think it would be great if we could fund those. If we do 2.9%, is that in the budget? Can we swing that?
Questions, comments? Moving on to our next item, our Assistant Superintendent of Instruction Personnel and Technology Report, Jason Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Loftus, and once again, good evening, everyone. A couple of brief updates for you. First, Sojourner Truth Awards on March 8th. We had 58 students recognized at SUNY Orange, receiving a Sojourner Truth Award, which is tremendous. We're very proud of them. To receive an award, students must be nominated for one of 10 key areas, including but not limited to athletics, citizenship, ELA, math, technology. So here in district, we had 58 students recommended, and they all received a wonderful medal and a certificate. And again, very proud of their efforts throughout the school year. Also want to make you aware that the Goshen High School class of 2024 top 6 will be announced actually tomorrow at 7:30. Students will be informed of their top 6 standing, and although I apologize, not tomorrow, 20th. So although students may know where they stand, they have not been formally told that they are in the top 6. So the administrative team will put on a wonderful breakfast, I'm sure with the help of our FACS department. Dr. Coates and I will be there. Hope to see a lot of smiling faces. And in my experience, some of the greatest fun actually occurs afterward when parents receive notification, usually from students or maybe the administrative team in the form of a phone call, as if there's discipline involved. Doesn't happen all the time, but some students do choose to do that. So, very good moment for them. Looking forward to that. Also wanted to just make you aware that, as I had mentioned earlier in the budget presentation, we continue to work with Scholastic and also to bring in professional development opportunities for our teachers revolving around math and focus and IXL actually. So just this week and ongoing, so March 12th, 18th, and 19th, we've had all of our teachers K-6 working with Dana Grover through BOCES and model schools to learn how to better integrate math and focus with IXL. And we're also discovering how we can better implement IXL with NWEA maps so that we can generate a more personalized learning plan for our students to address any deficiencies through the program. So I believe our teachers are doing well with it. They're enjoying their time with Dana. Dana is very thorough. I think she is a great personality, so our teachers are intrigued by what she brings to the table. So we look forward to continuing to work with them. Forward to seeing what we can do with IXL and WBA, math and focus. And then on the Scholastic side, we continue to have check-ins. So we met with Eleanor, Mrs. Lucas and her team with Scholastic. And as I had mentioned, our elementary teams continue to purchase some off-contract professional development, more so in the form of conducting lessons under the watchful eye of the professionals from Scholastic and receiving feedback to make necessary changes, if changes are needed. So we continue with that. And then finally, just wanted to make you aware that on March 19th at the Country Club at Otterkill, the Orange Ulster BOCES will have their humanities honoree breakfast. So here in district, we were able to honor 2 of our juniors, Morgan Taylor and Henry Dong. So this year, our students, so Morgan Taylor, she excels in civic action, so she's being awarded for all of her work with civic action. And Henry Dong is involved in many areas of the arts. So you'll see him, excelling in the areas of music, but then he'll also venture out and do a wonderful job for us with Science Olympiad and many others. So again, very proud of Henry and Morgan, and they will be honored at the Orange Ulster BOCES Humanity Breakfast, March 19th, 9 a.m. And that concludes my report. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Brett, Shannon. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby arranges for the special education programs and services based upon the recommendations made for preschool and school-age students with disabilities by the Committee on Preschool Special Education and Committee on Special Education during the period from January 11, 2024 through and including March 11, 2024. Directs the district to arrange for the provisions of such special education program and services to such preschool and school-age students with disabilities as recommended during such time period by the CPSE and CSE. Be it further resolved, on the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education approves the remainder of the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
One abstaining. Thank you. All right, I need a motion to approve the revisions to the code of conduct. Shannon and John. Be resolved that the Board of Education revises the 2023 Code of Conduct, Section 13, expungement of discipline to read, in the case of discipline in the nature of a short-term out-of-school suspension of no more than 5 school days or less, the the student may apply to have disciplinary records from their record of education based upon subsequent good behavior, evidenced by the absence of future disciplinary infractions. Such an application may be made one time only during the course of a student's applications for expungement in a discipline that involve serious bodily injury, use and or possession of weapons, and illegal drugs, controlled substances, and alcohol will not be considered. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Need a motion to approve minutes. John, Billy? Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the minutes. March 4th, 2024 regular. All in favor? Opposed? Need a motion to approve the annual meeting notice. Ashley and John. Be resolved that the Board of Education of the Goshen Central School District, Orange County, hereby authorizes and directs the district clerk to give notice to the qualified voters of the school district of the annual public hearing on the 2024-2025 budget annual meeting, school district election and vote, in accordance with section 2004 of the education law. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? I need a motion to approve overnight trip for Olympics of the Visual Arts, Saratoga Springs. Shannon, Billy. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the Olympics of the Visual Arts trip to Saratoga Springs, New York from May 12th through 13th, 2024. Be it further resolved that the board reserves the right to cancel or reschedule any school-sponsored trip or activity in the event of any emergency condition outside the control of the school district and sole discretion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? I need a motion to approve the overnight trip for Odyssey of the Mind Syracuse. John, Scott. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the Odyssey of the Mind trip to the state finals in Syracuse, New York from April 12th to 13th, 2024. Be it further resolved that the board reserves the right to cancel or reschedule any school-sponsored trip or activity in the event of an emergency condition outside of the control of the school district with sole discretion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? I need a motion to approve intermunicipal agreement with Washingtonville Central School District for the junior ROTC program. Ashley, Scott. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the intermunicipal agreement between the Goshen Central School District and the Washingtonville Central School District, which allows for Goshen Central School District students to participate in training with the Washingtonville Central School District's junior ROTC program, effective for the 2023-2024 school year. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to execute said intermunicipal agreement. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? I need a motion to approve the intermunicipal agreement between Goshen Central School District and Florida Union Free School District. Brett, John. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves entering into an intermunicipal agreement with the Florida Union Free School District to allow for one or more Florida students to participate as an independent athlete and to practice train with the Goshen grades 7 through 12 boys and girls swimming diving program for the 2024-2025 school years only. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent of schools to execute the agreement. All those in favor? Opposed? I need a motion to approve the agreement between Goshen Central School District and employee 031824. Billy and Shannon. Be resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the provisions of an agreement between the Goshen Central School District and employee number 031824 as presented to the board at this meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? I need a motion to approve the agreement for special education services, sub-allocation of IDEA 611 and 619 funds. Scott and Ashley. Be it further resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education enters into an agreement with the Inspire Kids to provide special education services for students and for the district to sub-allocate IDEA 611 and 619 funds to said providers on a per student basis for the grant year between July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? I need a motion to approve proposed CJH flooring project and classify as type 2 secret action. Brett and Ashley. Whereas the Board of Education the Goshen Central School District is considering a project for the abatement and remediation of raw material at CJ Hooker Middle School, including air testing and monitoring, related incidental costs and expenses. Collectively, the proposed action. And whereas the proposed action qualifies as a type 2 action set forth in 6 NYCRR section 617.5 of the implementing regulations of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQR, as it involves the replacement, reconstruction, and or rehabilitation of existing structures and or facilities and or routine activity of the district. And whereas the Board of Education has considered the information and documentation which describe the design and intent of the proposed action, now therefore be resolved, the Central School District Board of Education, based upon the record before it, including the general, specific, and detailed knowledge of the board of the proposed action and under the applicable standards of SEQR and its implementing regulations. At 6 NYCRR Part 617 hereby determines that the proposed action is classified as a type 2 action and in accordance with Article 8 of the New York Environmental Conservation Law and its implementing regulations, the proposed action is not subject to further environmental review. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education of the Goshen Central School District approves the proposed action that the superintendent of schools and the district architect and or engineer are hereby authorized to file the necessary and proper paperwork with the State Education Department to proceed with the proposed action. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Take a big breath there. I need a motion to approve proposed bus garage electric upgrade project and classify as type 2 secret application. Billy, Shannon. Whereas the Board of Education of the Goshen Central School District is considering a project for repair, replacement, and improvements of electrical systems at the district's bus garage, including but not limited to replacing switch panels, wiring, conduit, meters, and other equipment, collectively the proposed action. And whereas the proposed action qualifies as a type 2 action set forth in 6 NYCRR section 617.5 of the implementing regulations of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQR, and it involves the replacement, reconstruction, and or rehabilitation of existing structures and or facilities and or routine activity of the district. And whereas the board has considered the information and documentation which describe the design and intent of the proposed action, now therefore be it resolved that the Goshen Central School District Board of Education, based upon the record before it, including the general, specific, and detailed knowledge of the board of proposed action and under the applicable standards of SEQR and its implementing regulations at 6 NYCRR Part 617, hereby determines that proposed action is classified as a type 2 action and in accordance with Article 8 of the New York Environmental Conservation Law and its implementing regulations, the proposed action is not subject to further environmental review. Be it further resolved that the Board of Education of the Goshen Central School District approves the proposed action and that the superintendent of schools and the district architect and or engineer are hereby authorized to file the necessary and proper paperwork with the State Education Department to proceed with the proposed action. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Do we have any privilege of the floor? Thank you. All right, board member issues. There was one item I did want to mention earlier today. I just wanted to thank all the community members who showed up earlier this evening. We had, on a quick count, about 30 plus people that came up. And after looking back at my notes, probably 8 to 10 unique comments, points, concerns, recommendations, and questions that they brought to the district in different categories. Thank you to Carrie Stroka from BOCES, who I think did a really nice job kind of organizing, moderating, and keeping the event running smoothly to ensure everybody had a chance to be heard. In my opinion, I think it was a success and the first roundtable of that nature that we've seen. So again, thank you to all who participated, and to Carrie and Dr. Coates for helping to organize it and get it off the ground. Any other board member comments or issues?
I'd like to request, as far as the transportation department, each week, I brought this up before, but it seems like we see more and more resignations of bus drivers than we are people coming in and increase hours. Is there a way that we can get like maybe a lookout of what the employees were like the last 5 years, what's happened with the decline, and then what are we looking to do to attract new drivers? And what specifically we've done in the last couple of months to try to do that?
Thank you.
I just wanted to say between the last meeting and this meeting, I think we're moving in the right direction, as far as agreements with other school districts and giving our students opportunities, something we've been talking about. So, kudos to the district for stepping up and making that happen. So thank you, Dr. Coates.
One more follow-up regarding the roundtable, which again, I appreciate everyone who's involved. But to that end, is there a plan on when some of the questions that were not able to be answered tonight will be answered?
I think it'll take some time on to work with some of the other administrators to gather some of the information to be able to do that. I would hope that then maybe a week or two after spring break, they'll have some responses out.
Thank you.
Just going back to the budget real quick and those questions and bringing up the roundtable again and sitting and listening to the roundtable, I think there was a lot of, I'd like to see additional staff, I'd like to see additional events, I'd like to see additional curriculum. If maybe from a budgetary standpoint, we can see how maybe I'm sure some of those things you've already accounted for, how it affects the increase in the budget. Maybe being responsible to the taxpayers, they're asking for a lot, and I think everybody understands that a lot of these things cost money, but I think that would help create some of the transparency.
So just as a benchmark for everyone who's stuck in the back of your mind, so every 1% on our levy right now equates to about $560,000 in budget. So that is either reduction that we would have to pull out if we reduce the levy, or if we allow it to go up, what we would be able to add. It's about $560,000 for every 1%.
If I could just ask a question on that line, I know that you said, Dr. Coates, that you were looking to add more programs for the art. Is there anything in there about an additional art teacher, additional position?
So as I had shared earlier, we do fund extra class sections so that if we have an overload at any point during the school year, we need to ask a teacher to teach an additional assignment, we can fund that. We, in the back of our minds, had discussed the potential of 2 additional sections for art. We certainly could go out and try to hire what they would call a .4 teacher. Sometimes it's very hard to do, whereas asking current staff to take on additional teaching assignments, we can explore both, but there is funding for those additional sections. We did not hire or fund a complete 1.0 budget. Because once you do that, you start to have to add in health insurance and other benefits that make the cost go up exponentially.
But that does include a .4. Is that what, is that?
We have the ability to allow that to be funded in the budget.
Thank you.
I just want to ask a follow-up to what Ashley brought up, just in terms of the feedback going back to the comments and questions that people had, and keep the board in the loop as to what that communication's been, just so that we are all aware of the follow-ups that.
Certainly. And I was gonna add one more point to Ashley's points as well. Not only when are we looking at answers, but how will that message be delivered? Is it going to be just one email to everyone who showed up, or will that just be catered to each individual person?
I would say it's probably most appropriate to share that with each individual person that answered the question. And then we can discuss if we want to make any public statements at subsequent board meetings to address any of those overarching themes. I think it would be very difficult to go through every single question, but if there's some common themes amongst all of those questions, certainly could be addressed at a subsequent meeting.
That's great. Anything else? The last point for board member comments. We do have elections coming up for the Board of Education. Petitions will be available in the district clerk's office starting the 22nd.
Starting Friday.
Starting this Friday. Thank you. I think that was it. Okay, great. I need an approval. Need a motion, rather, to go into executive session. Be resolved, Board of Education to executive session with the intent not to reconvene related to the employment history. Take a look. Favor? Opposed? All right, thank you very much, everyone.
Hopefully it works. Raise